All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're so excited to have you here again with us. This is the Pondcast episode number 49. As always, we've got Anthony Leone, and we've got our chat man and questionnaire, Kevin Minto. And tonight, as a guest, the Turtle Room's own Chris Leone, also of Garden State Tortoise. So, Chris, glad to have you here. Same, Anthony and Kevin.
Thanks for having
me. To be here. Oh, yeah.
All right. Yeah, before we get too deep into what we're going to talk about tonight, I first want to thank all of you viewers who have donated to the Turtle Room or purchased a calendar since we announced that we had gone nonprofit. Basically, 4 weeks ago, the first Monday in November. So far, we've raised about $2,200 of the $7,000 that we need for startup funds. So if any of you are still unsure, we'd really appreciate anything you could toss our way. And for some of the bigger donations, we're definitely throwing it. We'll throw some shout outs on social media, possibly, if you want as well. Like all sorts of things we could do for you. Also, calendars. They are in stock. All the pre-orders have shipped out. I mean, Anthony, have you seen them yet? Did you get yours?
Absolutely.
What was your take on the calendar, gorgeous. Anthony?
They're absolutely gorgeous. I couldn't wait to show it off to my wife. Like, hey, you got to look at this. Look at these pictures. There were some species in there I really wanted her to see. And if you want to show off a species you're into and it happens to be in this calendar, these are the pictures to do it. It's like, I don't know. It's like the Playboy pinup of turtle shoots, because it's like they're not airbrushed or whatever, like, you know, the pinup girls are, but it's really just the most impressive photos ever. A lot of them taken by Chris and other folks as well, but man, they're good photos. I didn't even get a photo in there this year because I'm just not good enough. As simple as that. I'm not good enough to get a photo in there, and I'm fine with that because the calendar looks amazing.
Yeah, it's, you know, I don't have one in there either, and it's a good looking calendar. Chris and Kevin always play a role in helping put that together as well, between photos or some other behind the scenes stuff as well. In case any of you are wondering, you know, why do you need 7,000 for a startup? Well, you know, some people start nonprofits for cheap, but they may not get their federal status. We have applied for our federal 501c3 status for one. You can do it cheaper, but you might not have a good lawyer helping you work through things. We really wanted to plan for the future so we don't have to rewrite bylaws in the future. We really wanted to take a big view, say, where is the Turtle Room headed? And so between state fees, federal fees, and legal fees, that's where a lot of that comes in. Once that's covered, we have great projects that we'd really like to be able to build up even stronger. And so there'll be more coming out about those as we kind of meet this first fundraising mark. For instance, the terrapin nesting project, which you may have seen a lot about on Chris's pages, you know, that's one of those projects where we'd really like to put some more money in to really be able to grow that project and be able to meet some extra goals there. So tonight's show with Chris and Anthony were both at the TTPG Conference, which was about 3 weeks ago, I think now. And
already, wow. Jeez.
And so our first goal for tonight is to just kind of recap that conference, talk to them about some of their favorite moments, and then we'll open it up to you for some Chris Leone Q&A as we get towards the end of our show.
It's my favorite type of Q&A. It really is.
Who doesn't like asking Chris turtle and tortoise questions, right?
America's heartthrob.
That's right.
He's a dreamboat.
America's turtle heartthrob.
Men want to be him, and women want to be with him. It's Chris Leone. It's ridiculous.
Casey's going to have to fight him off with a stick.
He's here, ladies and gentlemen. He is here. This is happening, whether you like it or not. And I know you like it. That's what I meant to say.
I feel like we need like a TTR radio jingle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we really do. I've been listening to some other podcasts. We really do.
You're listening to TTR Radio 101.9, playing your favorite holiday favorites and gangster rap.
Chris, I think between the two of us, we might be able to record something.
We should, right? I mean, I don't know. I probably just stole that from somebody.
Only if I can sing it. Can I sing?
Oh yeah, you got to sing it. Yeah.
Sure.
Can I sing though?
Sure.
Yeah, it's got to be you.
I think it should be.
Yeah.
You know, we'll have Chris sing it in pitch and you sing it off pitch at the same
Exactly.
time. It'll sound great.
Good idea. Maybe we could do like a duet.
People will think it's a reptile show if it sounds like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Happy holidays. Just kidding.
Ho, ho, ho. Anyhow.
That just happened. Happy holidays, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep, there you go. It is December, and we are definitely in a joyous, festive spirit tonight. So the first question I wanted to ask you guys, actually, because I believe you were there before the conference started, is the field trip this year was to good friend and Turtle Room's team member, Andrew Hermes' Arizona Tortoise compound facility. So why don't you both give us, a minute or two of your quick impressions on Andrew's operation and maybe some things you might have learned that you're going to try to apply to what you're doing.
And Andrew's watching right now, by the way. He's on the chat.
Oh, Andrew.
I have to say that, well, first of all, my favorite part of the whole thing was we got there late. So by the time our good friend Charlie picked us up from the airport and got us there, because we landed a little bit late and we got there as the rest of the conference was leaving on the bus. So we got to just hang out with Andrew and his wife one-on-one and just kind of go through the place and take our time. And we spent, we were there for probably like 4 hours, just a few of us after the rest of the conference left. So it was great to catch up, obviously, because, just because of our friendship, but his place is incredible. I'll tell you what, not even just a tortoise, but if I was a parrot, I would want to live at Arizona Tortoise compound. I really would. His enclosures are spacious, amazing, but simple the way they need to be. And I don't know, I was just super impressed. I have no concerns, nothing. But probably my favorite part of that was the macaw aviary that he built for his macaws. Go figure.
We have a comment. Ray Gergie wants to know if you guys have been hitting the eggnog already.
Oh man, that was a great idea. No, I had 5 Oreos before I started, though. If I seem a little wired.
I have not, but if I was at Ray Gergie's house, I would be honored to have an eggnog with him right now.
Yeah, I would too, Ray.
I'm not an eggnog guy. I've never liked eggnog.
No, I don't either. It actually, I've never had it, and the thought of it makes me want to throw up. However,
I'll hit the Christmas punch, but not the eggnog.
I won't drink it with Ray Gergie, though.
I'll drink eggnog. Okay, I'm just throwing it out there. I got no problem with you eggnog.
It's dairy based, right?
Yeah,
it is dairy based.
You could probably get a non-dairy lame-o version of it. Eggnog.
That was stupid.
I know.
Yeah, I should just say Andrew's place is amazing. Being able to spend time with his wife was awesome. Julene is terrific. She's the hospitality was amazing. They worked so hard. Bless their whole heart. They worked so hard to get the place ready for everybody. And I know just people had an amazing time. You could see it. People really, really important turtle people who have been around for decades, doing really important stuff in the turtle world were there, and people who I don't even necessarily have a good relationship with. And we showed up late, obviously, because our plane got in a little late, but coming up to us and saying, man, this place is amazing. Wow, what an awesome way to step into Andrew's place, his new place for the first time and be able to check everything out. It was just awesome.
I'm hoping
it's everyone's dream.
Yeah, I'm hoping to stop in and see it next year when I head out to Tucson in August. So
yeah, that's right. I mean, yeah, Julian was great too because she made sure that I got a cupcake within the first 10 minutes that I was there.
Nice, can't go wrong with that, right?
Well, that was definitely a major highlight for me, and then came the turtles. So,
All right, another fun one I thought that might be interesting to ask is at these conferences you always get to meet a lot of new people. So, who was your favorite new person?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Listen, that's gonna make someone else upset. We're gonna
Ruffle
say
some feathers.
yeah, it's not about favorites. It's just one that stands out in your mind.
There you go. So yeah, maybe most impressionable new person. Maybe we'll word it that way.
Ooh.
Good question, Steve. I'm loving this right now.
I mean, yeah, this is a really good question. I mean, wow, I would say for starters, though, not that they're first time people, but I mean, we really had a great time after the conference each night, going out to the sports bar with John Green and Chris Hagan and Michaela. But I mean, everybody was I don't know. That's tough, man. Huh.
Damn, listen to you. You just talked. You don't even have an answer, and you just talked.
Yeah. Well, what do you want? You want me to be quiet? You want me to talk about eggnog again?
Listen, don't be afraid of the silence. Don't feel like you have to fill the silence. That's what I do during talks. We'll get to that too. We'll get to that issue. But filling the silence with ums and stuff like that. We're all friends here. This is just a chat between
really
friends.
Trying to it's one of those things where you get put on the spot, you kind of forget what even happened. I can't believe it was 3 weeks ago.
I can tell you my most disappointing friend situation was hanging out with John Green and trying all conference to try to get him to give me a TSA hoodie and not.
Oh, that was rough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or what about losing to Ronnie Hare
in a wrestling match? Because listen, I was trying to challenge John Green to a wrestling match, and Ronnie was like, "I'll do it," and I was like, "Okay." And yeah, I definitely bit off more than I could chew. Ronnie is a man. He is a
there's me
man.
on my cell phone. I think I could steal this Aldabra.
I love this picture. That's why I just sent it to Steve 3 minutes ago.
Oh man.
Isn't that great?
You know what? Paul Vandershow was great. That was the first time that I've met him.
Yeah, Paul is great. He's fun to talk to.
Great guy, and he's a wealth of knowledge. He's super cool to hang out with, and I have some projects going on with him, so it was cool to face to the name finally. That was great. Mark Cantos was awesome. That was the first time I met him.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I mean, I had met him before. I'd been at several things with him and had not talked to him. Wayne Hill is another person who I had met, who I'd been at places before, but I actually hadn't met him. Like, we've been in the same room several times at events and stuff like that. And because of something I said in my talk, he decided to come up to me afterwards and talk to me about it, which was
what was it? What was it that you said?
I kind of like dedicated my talk to Dave Lee a little bit. Big surprise. I talk about Dave and write about Dave all the time, but kind of my theme for my talk really felt like the type of stuff that he would talk about and write about. So I felt like it was only fitting to kind of open up my talk with a quote from him.
David Fabius.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He was a
He's
sweetheart.
South America. He keeps a bunch of South American stuff, right?
He wrote the Mata Mata book, right? Yeah.
No, he didn't.
No, which one? What did
I lied to you about that. That's David
that.
Fogel who wrote the Mata Mata book.
Oh, so it's your fault. So you can explain that.
Yeah, it's totally my fault.
No, but
I saw like, oh yeah, the South American guy. He wrote the Mata Mata. No, he didn't. It's a different David F. Yeah. No, he's big time though.
Yeah, he was great. He actually he wanted to talk to me about microchipping. Because he's actually experiencing some issues with it, with the Spixii and some of the other species that he's using it on.
Interesting.
He's saying that the microchips are going missing, so he wanted to talk to me about them because I talked about how all of our testudo were microchipped by the European Union and how we use the microchips now, our own microchips for the terrapin nesting project.
Yeah.
So it was a brief conversation. He said that it would probably be better if we got together through email at some point, but he was excellent. He did 3 talks, right?
I thought it was 2 when I looked at
I think 2. Yeah, I think 2.
Oh, okay. But anyway, his talks were awesome. I mean, just so much to learn about. He made me interested in those species that I wasn't really that interested in that,
He hatched 3 Acanthochelys spixii from 1 egg.
Wow.
A triplet egg? That's awesome.
Of that species. Nobody can hatch them in general. He hatched 3 from 1 egg. And he said he was reporting how many eggs he got. It's insane. He got like 350 eggs within like 3 months.
From Spixie?
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't even know what the common name is for that species. It's
one of the twist neck turtles.
They're the ones from South America that have the spines on their neck.
Mm-hmm.
They're so cool.
They call them twist necks, or is that platymies they call twist necks?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the platymies are right.
The swamp.
What are they?
I think it's something swamp.
I don't know about that.
Something swamp turtle.
I mean, the Western swamp tortoise has the neck thing too, but they're from Australia.
Australian. Yeah. Swami.
Steve, can you grab like a Wikipedia page for them?
Yeah, I can
show, just so people know what we're talking about, because I mean that's not a species that I expect everyone necessarily to know. I'd love to take this opportunity for somebody to kind of learn about a new species.
Spiny-necked swamp turtle.
Oh, you nailed it, Kev. Look at Kev's reaction. F you, Anthony. Get out of here.
All right.
I don't think so, Tim.
I mean,
I don't think so, Tim.
The TTPG guys themselves were great. You know, I got to hang out with, talk to James Badman a little bit, which was nice. He was talking to me about genetics that, you know, comparing the work that they've done on the Galapagos tortoises to the work that I've done on Hermans. And he was talking about how he's got some Hermans from like the 1970s that he would love to, you know, if there's any way that we could have those tested too. So that was cool. You know, that was a guy that I've always known who he was, but never spoke to him before. You know, I mean, really, you know, there were so many people. Everybody was great. It was really just a pleasant experience. Pete Jansemo is a great guy. You know, I don't know if you have anything to add to any more people. But
George Heinrich was a pleasure.
George is great. I met him the first time I was at TSA. He was actually one of the first people I met at my first TSA conference.
Oh wow! Yeah, his talk was fantastic.
He's been giving that talk all over the country. He gave it at the TSA conference as well. Spectacular.
You could tell that it was like,
yes,
you know,
as good as he is a talented,
it as a compliment.
Brilliant man. But you can tell because he delivers it so well. His jokes come off so smoothly.
Yeah,
he was so good though. And I went up to him after his talk and I said, "Listen, I really wish we could just clone you. Like the world needs more of you. Like." You look at him and you would never necessarily think that it's just like, you know, really like so intelligent and so caring and passionate. Like he was just amazing. He's amazing. It was an honor to be able to see him. So Ralph just texted me and said, "What about me?" Ralph, I love you, man.
Ralph, you're not new. You're
not new though. You're old news now, buddy.
Well, so some of the things you guys brought up while we're talking about some of the people are kind of where I wanted to go next is some of the talks. And I had a few different categories I was going to ask you about. And so you might bring up some of these same talks again. But so the first one I wanted to talk to or to ask you about was the one that you learned the most from. Like, what talk was the one that you were like, oh my goodness, and just kind of like, you're like, I'm going to take this stuff and I'm going to learn like this. I've learned this stuff and I'm going to take it and use it kind of thing.
Can I just preface this, Steve? That's such a good question. And I think I'm really interested to hear what Chris says because I already have mine in my head. But I think what your interests are and kind of who you are, like what realm you kind of fit into this, like conservation, preservation, turtle, reptile, animal world will determine what really speaks to you. Because there were so many good thoughts.
That's why it's such a good question.
Exactly. I'm telling you, man, you are on the ball right now. Yeah, but first you can go ahead and start, and then I'll come in with mine. Okay, I can start.
I liked Doug Dix's talk.
Good one. Yeah.
What was that one on?
It was just basically about him moving his animals, which is something that several of us just went through.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was about him moving these animals and what he did to set them up, predator protection, the issues that he went through. And it was just great to you know, he talked about like the mistakes that he made and stuff. And that's a lot of what got me with that was a lot of people are afraid to admit they've made mistakes, you know.
So where does he live? Did he move within the same state or like was it a big move?
No, it's a big move, I believe. He moved from wherever he was to Florida, right, Anthony?
I think he moved from Washington State to Florida.
Okay. So
wow.
There you go.
That is a huge
and he was
big move.
He was talking about like one part that got me was like the rainfall, how he had to deal with that, building the pens up, working with the substrate. And how many times have I called you ready to hang myself because I can't, you know, deal with the rain anymore, you know? And some of the things that he brought up in his talk were points that I've brought up in the past or even in my talk that I did there about how, you know, surveying the area, take it in first, see what's going to happen. In my case, I was in such a rush and it was such a bad time of year that, you know, I explained in my talk how the whole first row of pens ended up having to be removed because I couldn't deal with the flooding. There was nothing I could do. So that was some of the stuff that he talked about. And it was nice that he was like saying like, look, I've made this mistake. Don't, listen to me. Don't make it yourself. So that was like overall, like what I really appreciated about his talk, and that was just initially the first thing that got me. That was also one of the very first talks. I think he went right after you,
Yeah, I was the first talk. He was the second talk of the conference. He was amazing. Yeah. The talk that spoke to me most was Chris Hagen's.
Oh yeah, Hagen.
He's always amazing, and I wouldn't necessarily pick him just because you expect him to be perfect. You expect him to be there. You expect him to be perfect to deliver every time, and he did not disappoint. But I just felt like his talk, because there's so much. So his talk was on the flowerback complex, the galbinifrons complex, the flowerback box turtles, coral galbinifrons, Beretti, and Picturata. But he really veered off topic quite a bit, and really it ended up being a talk mostly of two parts. Number one being what they're doing at the TSC, so you got a lot of really good husbandry and update information about what they're building and what they're working on down there. But then also juxtapose that with kind of the situation in Asia and the price and demand for some of these species, how certain species are completely losing value, and
that's right.
Supply is far outweighing the demand, and then also just species that are going through the roof. So we see with so many species where their value just doesn't make sense. All of a sudden, overnight, they're worth 10 times more or 10 times less, and it's all based on the Asian market. He's reporting back to us what he's seeing, because the guy travels the world more than I travel the state that I live in, and
we're mind-boggling. The
insane
sheer volume of flavomarginata and trifasciata that were, like flies, just every age group, every size, just piles and piles of them, and how they're not moving. And that's where it comes back to, like you're saying, comes back to us oh, well, that's why the price or the availability changed in the last 24 hours, practically.
Yep. And it's funny to see how things go more slowly here, but you can rest assured that if the price dropped to that over there, and that's what they're willing to pay for them, then the price in America will drop to close to that as well. And Chris is talking about flavomarginata and trifasciata. That's the Chinese box turtle and the golden coin turtle, in case anyone's wondering. But the price on them has gone down immensely. And then other species like what are they? The yellow-headed box turtle, Cora aurocapitata. That's another species I just know by the scientific name, but their price is astronomical right now, and it just goes on based on what's available and how many people decide that they want it. Like we saw here with quang tongues and Vietnamese pond turtles when the price went through the roof, and now they're back down to $50. Charlie was just selling some quang tongues for $35, but they were $2,500 each for hatchlings in 2016. So the price goes based on what the Asian market, determines.
Talk about a free global market in that respect.
It's amazing.
I just want to throw in there too, which kind of ties in with what I was saying about Doug. Chris was talking about the big issue that they're having with breeding Cora Beretti, and how they're having more success with galbinifrons and Picturata, but that they're going through issues with Beretti with egg fertility. I forgot the statistics he showed, but it's just such a low number compared to the other two species. And he was sharing that and talking about how maybe they've been, maybe we've all been wrong about certain overwintering temperatures that they should or shouldn't be subjected to. So it was another okay, we know this now. It may not be a positive piece of information so far, but here's something that we can share with you. And that's what we did. And for me, I've been having problems with breeding Beretti too. And so I took that home with me. I was like, okay, I'm not crazy.
You're keeping them you've kept them really warm.
They've always gotten cool. They've always gotten cool, but again, we could talk about that forever, but yeah, they have been kept warm, but they have gone through a cooling to an extent, maybe not what, I don't know, but, and the other thing he did was he touched on the success that they're having with breeding Cora serrata, which is not a currently recognized species or subspecies, but it is something that, you know, more and more researchers and keepers are thinking needs more attention, because it's like this super hybrid that may be in the end the ultimate survival for some of these species, because they're getting destroyed so badly.
Well, it's a naturally occurring hybrid.
It's naturally occurring, yeah.
So this will probably overlap with the last category. It's why I put these two back to back. What about the most useful information you got from a talk? Sometimes where you learn the most isn't necessarily the stuff that you're going to be able to just go and say, oh, I'm going to use this right now. So what would have been the most useful?
And
they went silent. Don't be afraid of the silence, Chris.
I'm not be afraid of the silence. Everything. I'm trying. There was, you know, good amount of talks, and I was there for just about all of them.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to say this. Christine Light's talk about her Sulawesi project, where she's trying to help the Yuwanoi and the Forsteni, that's the Sulawesi forest tortoise, and Sulawesi forest turtle and Forsten's tortoise. What I got from her and what was the most useful to me was, regardless of what it is, you don't give up. And we go through aspects of keeping, conservation. Okay, like people like us, we're involved in both things. We keep turtles, we breed them, and we're also active in the field in trying to save them one way or another, whether it's the wood turtle surveys that we do or the terrapin nesting project. And, you know, Christine is going through absolute hell over there with, you know, they start this group of Forsten's tortoises. They're actually getting them from locals that are trying to sell them, you know, and then, you know, half the group gets pulverized. I forget what the different reasons that she was saying were going on, and just like going out in the field and not seeing any, you know, and like going all the way over for, you know, to spending money and time and effort to try to get started, you know, in accomplishing something with these species, and having no luck at all because of what we as humans have already done to them. But she does not give up. She does not give up at all.
Christine's great. Yeah. I really like Christine. In fact, this is one of the couple of research projects I know that are going on where I'd love for us to be able to help support that work.
We did donate, so that you know, on behalf of all of us. So, but the it was just incredible to see that, and that's what I was able to really take home with for me. I mean, I got points from everybody's talks about maybe I should, like even the Beretti thing. Oh, maybe I should keep them warmer or cooler, or whatever. But you know, for Christine's talk, it was just like, you know, just when you think you have it bad, you know, there's somebody that has it worse, but she's still powering through. She, you know, she's not letting anything stop her because her heart, her mind is set on saving those species. And it's the same thing with us. Like, granted, there's a lot more diamondback terrapins in the world than there are of those two species, but look at what we're going through down there. For every nest that we get, there's 10 more that the raccoons and the crows and the poachers get. So it's, you know, it just, in other words, it's, I was able to take some hope home from that. And you can even imply that to keeping, you know?
I would say for me, it was watching Michael Skibstead, the young man who I call a phenom, who was an amazing guest on our show maybe 3 months ago. He's the young man who went to Madagascar
3 months ago. We had him on in September.
Okay, thank you. And I knew if anyone would know, it would be you, or Ralph. And he was terrific. Really, I mean, he got up there with confidence and swagger.
Yeah.
14 years old, killing it. He had so much more confidence than I did when I spoke. And I sat there watching him like, man, this is just amazing. And it kind of gives you a newfound energy yourself, and optimism. When we spend so much time talking about these really glum things, you know, kind of nature and turtles specifically, and what's happening in the environment and natural spaces and the animals that live there, it can be really glum, a lot of these related topics. And just to see a young person like that get up there and command the stage and just say stuff that's just so far beyond the comprehension level that a 14-year-old should have, and just thinking, wow, like the future's in good hands. And I heard a lot of really big time people just, you know, gushing over him. really. And I will say, if I could just plug too, the TTPG was amazing, and Russ was so good. He said, a lot of times that we look like God's waiting room out here, and then it took a second, and everyone just started laughing. It was so good because it's true. You look through the crowd, and there's a lot of people who have, let's just say they're very experienced. And it's so important to get the next wave in there. And that was great, and he worked hard to get young people at the conference and offer like $40 scholarships when you actually sign up yourself. And there were a ton of young people there. I think there were. I don't know exactly how many there were, but there was a lot of young people there that normally wouldn't be there and hadn't been there when I was there in the past. So kudos to Russ and what they're doing, and it was great to be a part of that.
Yeah, awesome. So the next category that I had for you was, if you think through all the talks, the most underrated, like probably maybe the one that like people wouldn't come out and like be the first one they talk about, but when they really sit back and think through the conversation, they go, oh, you know what? I think that one might've been really good.
I liked Ashley from ZoomEd's talks. She was talking about was it Podoknemi's Vogelei that she did the talk?
I think so.
That was really good, and it was like that's not even a species that like I've ever even thought about, just because they're really big and aquatic, and just not one that I've really personally been attracted to. But and I sat there, listened to her talk, thought it was really good, but then looking back on it, it's like what's nice about talks like that is that they grow your interest in some species that you're not necessarily, maybe you weren't really necessarily into, you know what I mean? So, and I, if I do decide to get into them one day, like she's the person that I would talk to about, because they did breed them, they did hatch them, and she talked about, how they receded the water level to like nothing and like made it tidal, which got these turtles to feeling like, okay, we're up for doing this now,
Such important information. You're right. That was
just these little tidbits that are like, it's even some of the stuff that we've talked about before that we do for our own animals. It's like, you wouldn't believe what worked, we did this, and that was one of them. It's like, wow, there you go. And sometimes replicating nature, a lot of times that's at least what I love to do. Replicating nature is what makes these animals feel like they're at home.
Yeah. I think those are the ones that often might actually fit this category really well. That's not a species that I think anybody is like, ooh, I really want to go hear a talk about Podoknemis Vogelei, right? Like in general, I don't think that's like front of people's minds, but then you do, and you're like, oh, and then so like I think it's a really good one for the category.
Yeah, and there was a couple. Paul Vandershow did his talk was about that's right, Smithy, and there was another one in there, wasn't there? And that was, that is a species that a lot of people yearn to keep, but the information that he was given in there was really cool, and that's the thing, is like it's all coming back to me now. I'm sitting here thinking about the whole conference. I'm like, yeah, this was cool, that was cool. Overall, it was very welcoming, very comforting, and it was a wealth of knowledge. It really, really was,
Fact check. Vogelei is actually not that large. They're like the second smallest Podoknemis.
Well, for me, anything bigger than 5 inches in aquatic is a bit of a pain in the butt.
Yeah, they're still a foot plus long turtle, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they're a foot plus. Are they?
Wikipedia.
They're not as small as the redheaded podocs, but they're small.
Right. I've seen the redheaded be almost a foot long.
I don't know, man. I don't think they're over a foot.
These yellow blotched and diamondbacks are big to me. So.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to fact check that. We'll get back to everyone. We'll make a post about it on.
Everybody's probably googling it right now, going,
social media.
Idiots.
They don't know what they're talking about.
Turtle room.
Oh, I love you.
There's not a whole lot of account information on them out there. I'm gonna have to I'll pull a book off my shelf here while we're talking through the next one. And then the last category.
Really quick, let me just say, I do have to say this. Curtis Ippolito's talk on Tabasco Mud Turtles. Oh, that was one that I was like, I even said to him right after, I was like, well, thanks, man. Thanks for making me want a turtle that, like, I need another turtle, like a hole in the head, you know? But he did. And it just, I loved his passion about that species.
Oh, yeah.
Like, why don't you like these, So.
Well, actually, the reason why I loved his talk is that he tried. So the Comedy Central roast of James Franco, everybody gets up there. And this is from a few years ago, and everybody just crushes him. It's all inappropriate jokes, and and sexual jokes and everything else. It's just the way roasts are. It's the way they've been since Dean Martin and everything. And then Andy Samberg gets up there and roasts himself. He like acts like he's going to make fun of James Franco, but then roasts him. And it was so funny. And the way he did it was completely different. And I felt like Curtis's reminded me of that. Number one, it was hilarious. His titles, nobody was laughing, but I was standing in the back of the auditorium at that point, and I was just like trying to keep myself from scream laughing and like taking the attention away from him on the stage because I thought they were so funny. And he just approached it in a way that nobody else would, and I thought that that was really cool.
Yeah.
He's been fine tuning his talk on them for a while. He's gained a lot more knowledge, and he gave I had him present on that species at TSA in Tucson when we were there last time, and so he's learned so much more since then, even more about that species. And so I'm not surprised that he really cranked that talk up a bit.
But what I'm trying to say is he didn't. I guarantee you the talk was totally different than what he gave at TSA because he got up and he said, I'm not going to sit here and talk about how I keep them, how like what I do to hatch the eggs, anything about their natural history, like literally nothing that a normal talk would be about. It was basically like a sales pitch because he had a short
it was
talk. So it's like 15 minutes. It was just a sales pitch where he said, I like this species because of the color of that, like the color of their soft tissue. I like the color of their carapace. I like the way they behave when they do this behavior. I like them because of this. And why don't you? And like,
yeah,
that's really cool.
Awesome.
It was like fine.
That's cool.
Yes, I would.
Yeah. So it's completely different, and that's what I really loved about his talk. So there.
All right.
I pulled out a book, by the way.
Oh, I have that book. Probably should.
Yeah. I actually got it for
pulled up a different
like
one.
I already had it, dummy.
So this one talks about 38 millimeters, Anthony, which is 15 inches.
Yeah,
380 millimeters, 38 centimeters, 15 inches.
That's a big term.
You know what? Just because one of them got to be that big doesn't mean anything. You and me are the same species, Chris.
Because you can't keep it in this doesn't mean it's small.
You can keep it in that.
It depends on who you are.
That was sarcasm, ladies and gentlemen. The sarcasm. Nobody wants to keep a 15-inch turtle in that 13-inch tote. Just kidding.
I don't even think that's a tote.
It's a
plastic sweater box.
Sweater box.
All right, and so one more. Which one like shocked you or surprised you the most? Like you were like, "Oh, holy crap!" from the content of a talk. Like some bizarre fact you heard that you didn't expect to hear, or something, anything along those lines that was like, "Oh man, that really stood out." Just even a little tidbit.
Probably David Fabius, probably.
Yeah. Same here. I was just going to say the fact that someone is not only hatching that species regularly, but hatching them in humongous numbers. And like in the age of the internet, like how did I not know that? Like obviously Russ knew it. Obviously people know it, but like, how did I not know it? I spend every waking hour either researching, doing something related to turtles, or wishing I was doing something related to turtles. So how did I miss that one?
Yeah.
It is super impressive.
Yep. Yeah, I fully agree with that one.
All right, one last TTPG thing, and I'm gonna put a restriction on this. The answer to this cannot be Anthony's wrestling match with Ronnie Hare. Okay. The answer cannot be that. What was your favorite conference moment?
That wasn't my favorite conference moment, I'll tell you that right.
I can't repeat what he said, but my favorite conference moment was the final night when we were at the sports bar. It was you, Charlie, me, Chris Hagen, John Green, Michaela, James Hall, and I think there was one or two other people. And John Green kept falling asleep.
It was a long conference for a lot of us. We went, we were tired.
With his wine, okay? And now he's in this chair, and he just keeps like, I'm not going to say some of the things he said, but he'd wake up and he'd be like, "Screw you guys," and then but he never spilt that wine.
That's right. It was a long conference. We were working very hard.
Oh yeah.
Some of us took it really seriously. We were going to wake up early, stay up late, jet lag, all the rest of it.
TSA, man.
I got home and got sick immediately. Yeah.
And hey, I have to say this. I have to say this last part because it involves the animal aspect of it. Probably at least on par with John Green's moments, my favorite conference moment was seeing massive adult sulcata tortoises in an Arizona environment. It gave me an entirely new appreciation for those animals, and that's the kind of area that they belong. When you see them, that you're just like, it's like the opening, one of the opening scenes of Jurassic Park when they first see the brachiosaurs coming up out of the swamps. It's like it was just something so beautiful about it. They're not restricted. They can burrow as far as they want. They're safe. I mean, they even Andrew even found a baby, or didn't Charlie find it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we found a baby that hatched in the ground there. That's such a popular tortoise that gets so much good and bad attention because of how big they get and because their price is so cheap that everybody buys them right away, raises them up, and then the rest of us get phone calls. I need you to take my big male sulcata. I want to send them all there because it's just the way he's got them set up is just fantastic. It was great. High five.
Yeah, it was really terrific. And my favorite moment, I was getting ready to talk. I was freaking out. So I was the keynote speaker for the conference, which to me, I thought keynote was like a really important speech at some point, like the one who would speak during the banquet or something like that. So I didn't know that. I just thought I was going first. And then when Russ introduced me, I pooped my pants. But before that, I was out of my mind. I never get anxious ever. I'm like, normally just go with the flow, but I really care about this stuff a lot. And I was freaking out because my talk, I tried to do something a little bit different than what I would normally do. I tried to, do what Curtis did and probably fell a lot shorter than he did, for sure. But anyway, I'm getting ready to go up and I'm just out of my mind. And it's like 5 minutes before I go on and James Hall comes over. And I don't even know if he knew I was the first talker or what, but he came over with my book and asked me to sign it. And he's someone who I talk to all the time. And he's a keeper at the Phoenix Zoo. He's such a nice guy. And we'll actually have him on the Pondcast in February as a guest. But he's really passionate about turtles. He's a really dedicated young zookeeper who loves turtles and among other animals. But to be able to meet him at that moment and to have him bring my book up, it was like such an amazing moment that probably saved me from really crashing and burning during my talk, and only crashing and burning a little bit, which is what actually happened. But I was like in the middle. I was sitting next to Charlie Moorcroft, and I was in the middle of telling him like how much I was freaking out, and then here up walks James and like saves the day for me totally. And I don't think he has any idea how much it meant to me. But I will say I'm like, at times like that, when I'm anxious, I'm like Michael Scott from The Office. Like I will, like, based on what happens to me immediately before, or like something that someone says to me in passing, I could either be like on cloud 9 or like in the gutter mentally. And he was just awesome. So look forward to having him on in February. And that was really a moment that meant a lot to me at the conference.
Nice. So
timing was perfect.
Chris, give me the highlights of Anthony's talk.
The highlights of Anthony's talk. Well, he embarrassed the hell out of me.
That's true. I did.
He did. Yeah, he used a couple photos of me in it that, covered my wonderful height that never happened. But it was very unique. And I told him from the get-go, when he wasn't sure how well it was going to go over, that I knew it would go over well because he was doing something different, and he was bringing the education aspect to it, which is something that the TTPG and really any turtle or tortoise organization is really big on. And that's what he was talking about. And he brought, he had a picture of Shannon in there. He had a picture of Cambria in there, and he had it was very family oriented, very from the heart. And then he even went as far as he brought up Flavos and like why they're such a good turtle, and stuff like that. But I just like the fact that he it's kind of like what I always talk about when I talk to you guys and I'm venting to you guys about how different sides need to merge and different, you know what I mean, that kind of stuff. And he brought the educational aspect to the talk, to the conference. And I feel like it really kind of set the tone a little bit, because you would hear people mention similar type things as the conference went on. It was kind of like an unspoken vibe that just kind of went on, you know, where people were just being a little more passionate about things than maybe they would be. And each talk had a little bit of a more personal feel to it than maybe they would have if he didn't set that tone. I don't know why I'm having a problem with words tonight.
It's all right.
That means a lot, man.
Anthony, where's your slideshow anyway?
My slideshow?
Yeah, from your presentation.
Oh, it's not saved there because it's I did it in Prezi instead of slides.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so I had to actually, it looked really nice. But I paid for it, man. And I don't mean, it's a long story, but when I was trying to get my presentation to work and was freaking out, I signed up to pay like $228 a year for a Prezi subscription so that they would let me download it. And then the download was going to take 3 hours. So I had to get the internet to work.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah, it was like right up there. Luckily, so they didn't have the right cord they needed for the laptop. So Kurt had to run to Walmart, I think. And if that didn't happen, my talk wouldn't have been ready on time. But luckily, it seemed like it was their delay. It was delayed by a few minutes. It seemed like it was their delay, but it was really like I was right there with them. And like, thank goodness they lined up. And this is why I was a nervous wreck. On top of the fact that I was talking about something that was kind of like education based, as opposed to just, here's this species, this is what I do which is a super important talk. I just wanted to try to do something different. And it was great in concept until I tried to do it. And then I was freaking out.
You kept it together, though. Like, it didn't look like you were freaking out, but I'll be honest with you. I was trying to keep it together for you, and I was freaking out for you. I literally ran outside, and I called Casey, and I was like, oh, my God, his talk's not going to play. He's like, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean his talk's going to play? He's like, I don't know. It's just not going to work.
Anthony, is there any way we can
You're emotional.
Get an exported PDF or share your slideshow with folks if they want to look through it?
Yes,
we did film too. Now, we had a little bit of technical difficulties. We got most of my talk, missed the ending, and we got most of Chris's talk and missed probably the middle. And then we got all of Michael Skipstead's talk. So enjoy. But so we did want to film them and try to film them this year, but unfortunately I was having some technical difficulties with my camera. Okay. But Kevin's going to splice them together, and hopefully you can get the essence of a talk, through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Are you going to ask me about his talk?
I was.
I can answer this succinctly, and I'm excited about that because I don't always do that. Chris's talk was absolutely awesome, and I'll tell you why. And this isn't just kiss each other's butt. His talk was awesome because when you could hear someone, just like we were talking about with George Heinrich and Chris Hagen and Paul van der Schouw and like so many other people who did such a great job. His name pronounced Paul van der Schouw. I always want to say Van der Schouw.
Sorry, Paul.
Sorry, Paul. I love you. It's a tough one. You know that. You've known it your whole life. But when you hear someone like that who knows the subject so well that they don't have to think, and from a presenter's perspective, as somebody who really struggled with what they were saying because it was kind of conceptual, it was my first time talking about it, and maybe I was a lot more nervous than a normal person, being able to hear someone speak about something that they're so passionate about, that they know inside and out. And Chris's was the epitome of that. Like, they could have given him 6 hours and it wouldn't have been enough time. It didn't matter when you cut it off. It was going to be, it's like the NCAA March Madness, like 64 teams, 16 teams, 600 teams. It doesn't matter. Like, you're going to have to cut it off somewhere. There's always another team you could put in. And that's a lie because there's not 600 teams in Division I. But anyway, you get what I'm saying.
500 and something.
Like, I said I was going to be succinct, and I'm not. I think it's 400. It's around 400, I think. But he was awesome. It's an honor to be able to hear someone who's so passionate about a subject and so knowledgeable. And that's really the takeaway, is like he's talking about things at a level that people don't even know exists. It's like when you see a bodybuilder who's got, well-defined muscles that I don't even think I have in my body, let alone pumping them up. You know what I mean? Like, it's amazing what he's into, and to be able to hear it like that is a real treat. And it's stuff that I've heard him talk about countless times, but it's still good because there's always these little wrinkles, things that he's passionate about, excited about, that are happening, new developments mixed in with everything that really keeps it fresh and awesome.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. I think that was fun hearing about that. I really hope our listeners felt the same way listening to you guys talk about TTPG.
What does 351 mean?
That's the full. That's the Division I basketball schools.
There you go. All right. I want to make sure that if that's what it was. Thank goodness that's what it was, because I didn't know. He just wrote it in the chat. We have a chat, so we can talk to each other when we're talking to each other. It's amazing, but it's very tough to multitask. I can't chew bubblegum and walk at the same time. But he just put up that it was 351. And so I wanted to ask him what it was. Luckily, it's not something embarrassing that you were talking about. 351, that's my weight. That's how much I weigh.
I'm literally lower than that now, but you know.
No, I was lower than that before, but that's about what's going on. So there you go. I embarrassed myself.
All right, Mr. Minto, what do we got for Chris?
So a couple questions that have come in over the past 50 minutes. Just gonna throw them out there now.
Okay.
The first one was from Cole Schramm.
Mm-hmm.
Egyptian tortoise substrate, specifically crushed oyster shell, seems to be a hot button topic in the tortoise Facebook groups. What are your guys' official professional opinion on this subject?
Let me start by saying,
great question,
that everything is a debatable, hot, oh my God, over the top, smack yourself in the face situation on tortoise forums. Okay. Here's the thing. Everybody gets afraid of impaction. Okay. One day it was sand. Then the next day it was bubble gum. Now it's oyster shell. Okay. Anything and everything can cause impaction. It's how you feed the animal. It's how you create the substrate, how you create the terrain and everything else that you're doing inside the enclosure. So oyster shell is the go-to substrate for Egyptian tortoises because it enables these animals to stay dry even when you're creating a humid air for them because they occur on the coast. So as time's gone on, I play with more naturalistic stuff. You know, I add a lot of sand to our enclosures and different grades of gravel. And then people will write in and say, oh my God, Chris, you're going to kill all your tortoises. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Maybe. I don't know why people do that because there's an if and or but for every single situation. Ralph Till, probably the biggest Egyptian tortoise breeder in this country. Okay.
No, number 2.
I consider him number 1. And
he's number 1 in my heart.
Okay.
I'll tell you that right now.
And he uses oyster shell, and the guy's got no problems. And I took that from him and from, you know, just growing up, learning about testudo and how to keep them. And a lot of earlier on problems, we're trying to figure out how to keep these tortoises on some kind of a substrate that somewhat naturally mimics the wild. And I have found no issues with oyster shell. There have even been a couple people, one in particular, I won't give out any names just in case they don't want this information out there, that had necropsies done on deceased Egyptian tortoises, and there was no oyster shell found inside them. They were impacted for another reason. I forget what it was, but it wasn't the oyster shell. And, you know, again, you know, not going to give out names. I don't have proof to show you, but I can tell you, I have never had a problem with it. I've been keeping Egyptians since I think my parents bought me my first Egyptian tortoise before I could drive. I was probably 13 or 14 years old. I don't still have that animal, but you know, I've had so many different ones throughout the years, and I've always used oyster shell as at least a component in the substrate for them. I've never lost a single one because of it. So
I think it's interesting to say, just you know, as commentary on this hot button topic, is mostly sand substrate, mostly really naturalistic enclosure. I have a really minimalistic enclosure for my Egyptians, enclosures, the way that I design them for my Egyptians, and I use crushed coral exclusively. Mm-hmm. So just to show you right there, like we're about as close as it gets, you know, friendship wise and talking about what we're doing and all that type of stuff. But you know, Ralph uses the crushed coral. He does an amazing job, and you know, my animals came from Ralph. He has nothing but the most healthy animals. Ask anyone who's ever gotten one from him. He breeds the heck out of them. He does an amazing job. So I said, okay, Ralph, what do you think I should do? And I've been to his place several times, so I just tried to emulate that. But here's a great example. You know, Chris and I, both part of the Turtle Room, both keeping Egyptians and keeping them different ways, because really you can do it right both ways.
You can, and like I said, like for the longest time, I used just exclusively oyster shell, and it doesn't stop with Egyptians. I use it on the different other arid types of testudo. You know, you've got the Moroccan Greek tortoises, the Libyans, the Tunisians. They're all essentially bigger Egyptian tortoises. They live the exact same kind of lives, basically the same kind of environment, and a lot of them are coastal. And again, I use the oyster shell as at least a component in them. But for Egyptians, I've in the past plenty of times I've used exclusively crushed oyster shell and or coral. And I think in the end, it's you got to keep in mind, especially, you know, this is these forums and online accessibilities are a wonderful thing, but at the same token, they bring a lot of heartache on there because you're going to get opinion after opinion after opinion after opinion after opinion. Sometimes you got to pull back and you got to say to yourself, how long has this person that's telling me this is a bad thing been keeping the species? Have they done this with it? Have they done that with it? The whole nine. You got to take in the big picture. Opinions are fine. Everybody's entitled to it. But you do get a lot of tortoise parents, tortoise mom and dads that are just overly pampering with these animals. They're wild animals. They've been on this planet longer than us. They know what they're doing. It's up to us to give them the basics, what they need, what is required for them to thrive, and then take a step back. Okay, you're constantly picking up the tortoise and you know, making sure it's not eating this, it's not eating that. These are some of the people that you're dealing with that are just that over the top. Okay, I find it to be a very safe substrate for that species and other arid dwelling tortoises, including sand. Franks and beans.
Naturally.
High five, Cole.
I think.
All right.
Minto's computer froze.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
All right. I have Byron. He asked the question, does it seem that aquatic turtles are presenting more conservation problems across the globe than tortoise species?
Probably.
I would say no. I mean, look at the radiated confiscations.
Yeah.
Like, I think in general, the aquatic turtles maybe have smaller populations to begin with, but I mean, when you've got 361 species plus subspecies beyond that, and 61% of those species are threatened, endangered, critically endangered, or extinct in the wild, I think they're all
screwed.
You know, there's no splitting the hair between the tortoise and the turtle here, and you know, turtles in general are in trouble.
I think we tend to, you know, all right, we're in the United States, so we do tend to hear a lot about turtles of our own country because our country is primarily made up of turtles and just a very few minute tortoises. So we do, at least from what I can see, we hear a lot about our semi-terrestrial and aquatic turtles that are in dire need of help and trouble. And with the whole Asian turtle crisis that's been going on for so long, that's been forced down all of our throats over the years. So I think that cloud maybe makes us think that there's more problems. But, you know, I think Steve said it best with the radiated tortoise confiscations. I mean, 2 of them back to back, just, you know, unbelievable droves of them that are, you know, I don't even know how the hell somebody pulled that off, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's wild.
It's really tough to quantify exactly, like to compare those two. You could take countless different viewpoints to look at it because, I mean, like if you look at the nomenclature, like there are spots where turtles are just separated, map turtles, into a million very similar species. Cora, like the Asian box turtles. And there's probably more turtle species that are in trouble than tortoise species that are in trouble, but there's more turtle species in general.
But, you know,
species, yeah.
Most endangered, I mean, arguably, well, you know.
So the most endangered colonian is the Swinhoai, the Red River softshell turtle. There's
but then you've got the plowshare tortoise that's right behind it, you know?
No, it's not.
Well, I mean, compared to other tortoises, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like there are other turtle species that are more rare than the plowshare.
No,
besides
I know that. I'm talking strictly from the tortoises to answer Byron that, you know, there is, you know.
Yeah, there's always going to be icons, and we try to pick up these icons. And the problem with turtles and tortoises are they're not megafauna. It's really difficult to find this large charismatic species that speaks to people in zoos. Right. And some of these species are so far gone that there's one zoo in the world where you can see them, because there's 3 of them left. Did they find some though? I thought I heard at TTPG that they just found 2 more. Chuck Schaefer was saying that.
But the other thing too is, just to touch on it real quick, sure, we may be seeing this legislation coming in these crazy, horrific stories regarding aquatic turtles and Asian turtles and stuff like that. But look at Russian tortoises. Okay, that's got to stop. All right. I mean, right now, maybe there's a good amount of Russian tortoises left. Okay. But they keep coming over and coming over and coming over and coming over. And I mean, just piles of them continue to come in every year. Okay. So there's a tortoise that, fast forward 30, 40 years from now, our kids, if they're taking this over for us, that could be the new contestant. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, it's a Russian tortoise? I can't remember the last time I saw one. It could happen,
Yeah.
There'll be a day when an Eastern painted turtle is a $200 animal, probably.
It's funny because I work for a vet now, and I'm like the turtle guy around all the vet hospitals, and they call me. Like, there's one vet that called me because they got a Russian tortoise in for a yearly checkup, and they never do yearly checkups on reptiles in general, and never had a Russian tortoise. So she called me just to like brush up on her tortoise stuff, and but it's so funny because in all these interactions I have with people about Russians, they have no idea that they're taken from the wild and sent here. Nobody says that to them.
Armed.
Yeah. No, but nobody says that. So it's so funny because it's supposed to keep us healthy. So now you're taking a wild animal from across the world and plopping it on the people's kitchen floor to walk around with their dog and play with their kids who aren't washing their hands afterwards.
An animal spending its days in stony outcrops and scrubland. You know what I mean? Like it's on linoleum.
It's horrible for the animal, and it's obviously unsafe for the families that the 4-inch law is supposed to protect.
Right.
We got off on a tangent. We do that.
Yeah, we did. Sorry. Next
All right.
That was a good question though, but one that I don't think can be answered.
Yeah.
It just can't.
Yeah.
Anyone could come on and make an argument and be right, but I don't think that solves wins the debate. Kevin.
I don't have any other questions on the staff. On the chat right now.
Oh, feel free to let us know that.
I apologize. Actually,
I love you, Kevin, so much. I love you so much, man. I just want you to know that at this moment.
William actually just chimed in. What is your take on all of the Mexican species that are currently coming to the country?
Great question.
Anything in effect that will try and negate the situation?
The people have to be watching.
You broke up there for a minute. What was the last half of it?
Is there anything that's happening that could negate the situation? Not that I've heard, but there's got to be people watching. And if you're one of those people who are selling them or buying them, proceed with caution, because it's known how many of these animals came in legally, and all these people that are in South Texas that have countless Yucatan Box Turtles and what are they? The Spotlight Box Turtle, Nelsoni, and
Spotted Box Turtle,
Spotted, sorry, and Mexican Box Turtles. This is serious, man. This is serious.
Same thing with the Rhino Clemmies just a few years ago. You had Rubida coming in. You had Incisors. Well, Incisors already coming in, but you had all those rare Rhino Clemmies popping up. Melanosterna, Rubida, Paraxantha, and it's the same thing now. There's been a real influx with these Yucatan Mexican box turtles, and I think the only reason we're not seeing Kwajalein box turtles show up is because they're in such a small pocket that's so restricted and protected that I just don't think anybody can get into it. But Yucatans and Mexicans are more widespread. There's no eyes on them in the wild, pretty much, So I think that's what's happening there. But yeah, I mean, every single one, the ones here that we've gotten, the ones that everybody's getting, they're only coming in one way.
Yeah.
And they're not supposed to be.
Yeah, and you could see it too. It's clear as day. We see the same thing with Spengleri recently, where everyone's buying out collections. I bought someone's collection and they have 15 of these turtles that never came to the States legally, and they're all adults, and I need to sell them. And then a week later, they're half price. Like, where's the haste coming from? Show me pictures of the enclosures.
Yeah, you wouldn't be giving them away like that.
Yeah, and the haste, the need to get rid of them quickly. smells of middlemen.
In the end,
it's unfortunate.
They need to end up, they're here. They're not going anywhere, unfortunately. So they need to end up in the right places, hopefully, because there's just so many of them sitting on the classifieds, it seems.
But I think people should proceed with caution because.
Oh yeah. No, I
it's something could happen. I don't know what's happening behind the scenes with
paperwork. Ask for receipts.
Yeah.
Do it right.
That's really good advice. And I don't want to when you say hopefully they end up in the right hands. Like you hope that well-meaning people don't try to scrape together the pennies to try to buy some and then end up getting in trouble because they're buying from an agent or something. Like just proceed with caution and be careful. It's not worth it. If you continue to do the right thing and try to be involved in the turtles and keep turtles and stuff like that, like you have a lot of time to make a name for yourself, make connections, and get really cool turtles without having to be a part of risky behavior.
And just to add something, if you already have one of these animals that we're talking about, that you've gotten recently, go get it checked out. Run some tests to find out what parasites are in there, possibly that you can try to save your animal before a problem actually persists and shows up.
Good call. What do we got?
Well, here, while we wait for another question, I'm going to throw this up on the screen just because it's fun.
A nice shot.
In the new tank, no less.
What is that, sulcata?
Let's see here.
I wonder if a lot of people even know that species is a thing. Four-eyed turtles. It's a cool species, ladies and gentlemen.
Indeed. One of my favorites.
Species.
They were on the video backdrop of our old Turtle News that you didn't want to do anymore.
Yeah, that sucked.
Oh, I thought Kevin's work was fantastic with that.
Kevin's work was amazing. Anthony's work sucked, and that's why it sucked as an experience. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to try it out with a new newscaster then.
Yeah, exactly. Get a new newscaster, man.
Hey, we had gotten an email from Jared Briggs.
Yeah, I had sent it.
Yeah,
this is the reason, and I should preface that by saying this is the reason why Chris is on tonight. Is Jared had sent me an email,
right? And so let's. I almost forgot about those questions. So since it's running a little slow, we probably can have it put in another 10 or 15 minutes here, hopefully. So Chris, I'll let you pick one to answer. I'm going to give you 3 or 4 of them, and then you can decide where you want to go. All right. The major do's and don'ts of running your operation, how to get started in an operation like yours, building enclosures, ponds.
I'm going to pick the do's and don'ts because that kind of goes with what we were talking about, what we took away from TTPG, admitting your mistakes, that kind of stuff. But I'm going to say the first don't is kind of goes with the question that Cole had about oyster shell. Is doing research is a wonderful thing, but it can also hurt you because of the amazing amount of opinions and overly opinionated people that are going to come through. So you have to get your heart set on something, and I think it starts with placing yourself in that animal's situation as much as possible, or a group of animals. Okay, for me, there are many different ways of how to keep and breed turtles. My way is not the only way. Andrew's way is not the only way. Your guy's way, you know what I mean? But I knew a way I wanted to do it. I wasn't going to let anybody sway me from it. So I stuck to what I felt, what I grew up on, what I did my own research, weighing things out. So I think the first don't is don't, take everything with a grain of salt. Don't listen to everybody. Okay. If you've got, these long-term breeders that are having incredible success by using oyster shell, well, then it must be okay, right? Just because one person comes out of the woodwork saying like, oh, well, mine died because of it. Okay. It's it's six one, half a dozen of another. You know, anything can go wrong with anything. Okay, there are people that have experienced the most horrific situations where they've lost their entire operation because it burned down. Okay, and it's not because somebody said, well, don't use that light. It just, for whatever reason, something electrical, whatever went wrong, that happened. Okay, so I think that's the first part is you got to believe in a way of how you want to do things. What starts with believing in yourself, and go with that. Let me think of some of the other do's and don'ts. What I would do, you have to immerse yourself. You have to completely immerse yourself in the operation, in the animals. Okay, I'm not one. Yeah, there are animals in my collection that, you know, Mickey the Aldabra, there's one right there. Like that tortoise is a pet, plain and simple. Okay, he may never breed in our lifetime, even if we were to get him, her a mate. Okay, but you have to immerse yourself in this to the point where you are the protector, the guardian of those animals and what they're going to do in your care. Whether you give them all names and tuck them in at night, or you just come out there, you know, ready to fight for them every single day. Basically what I'm trying to get at here is, so you need to have a supportive family, a supportive spouse. You know, my wife is incredible. This is our life, these animals, you know, what we go to bat for them every single day. We never wouldn't. So that's the first thing is I think people get this dream. Like I want to breed reptiles, or I want to work with turtles, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, depending on what level you want to do it on, if you're going to have a whole operation like I have, like Andrew has, like that takes a family commitment. You know, it's not just a see you later, I'm going to go play with my turtles type thing. And as much as all of us would love to be able to do that, you know, but, you know, go ahead.
I would say getting something that big, it isn't that isn't something you do overnight unless you're willing to take out some kind of small business loan to get started.
Which I did, and it still took me years, you know.
Well, you said you didn't, right?
No, I did. I did take out a small business loan, but it took me years to, granted, I was growing up with turtles my whole life. You know, I had animals in my collection my entire life, but, you know, it's a major sacrifice.
A single habitat can be $1,000 easily. Mm-hmm. And then there's the money on the animals to go in it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Steve Rosen, he just says, what about sustainable growth? i.e. not overwhelming yourself in a short period of time in terms of animal numbers. Like,
that's a great question.
That's a great tip, like, or a great point, or whatever you want to call it, you know?
Yeah, that's another thing. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and that comes down to space too. And are you operating on your own? You know, my wife is a stay-at-home mom, and she helps me with this. She runs the terrapin nesting project in the summer, but a lot of times, I mean, it's just me out here, you know, and it becomes overwhelming. And, you know, talking about being sustainable and stuff, you know, you've got everybody and everyone taken from you all the time. Oh, the electric bill is $1,000 this month. You know, the phone bill from talking to people and dealing with stuff is $300 this month. Or, oh my God, they didn't have dandelion this week. They had curly endive, which is $74 instead of the normal $30 it was this week. That's stuff that I deal with on a regular basis. You know, I just had to order pinky mice for some of our Cora. There goes $150 because of the amount that I needed, you know, and you have to understand that the return that may or may not come in from these animals is not going to necessarily happen within the next 24 hours. You know, it requires patience. It requires financial backing. It requires a family effort, you know, unless you're on your own, you know, that's fine too.
Yeah.
But, you know, making it sustainable, I mean, that's yeah.
Can I just say something?
Yeah, please do. I
have spent my entire life wanting to be Chris Leone, and I can sit here and not specifically you. I mean, obviously you're a peach. I would love to be you, but to have your life, your job is to breed and raise turtles and tortoises. You are living the dream.
But it's not always
but I'm going to tell you something. That's just the beginning of my statement. Mm-hmm. After getting to know you so closely and spending so much time there and seeing the struggle that you go through to make it work, the pressure that's on you, you lose power, lightning strike, for small fire, whatever, not that that's happened to you, but like there is so much at risk that I could not do it. And if you ask me right now, I would not do it. And actually someone just asked me today, do you want to be Andrew? Do you want to be Chris? Like, it's asking me about the kind of like, where do you see yourself in the future? What do you want to be? And the answer is no. Like, I think for me, turtles and tortoises are a hobby of mine, and I like it that way for the most part. I mean, there are certain things that I would change kind of my situation for, certain opportunities and stuff, but I don't think that's a way to go for me, because I see the struggle. So I think when people look from the outside, and this is what we do, this is what social media is. It's extension of the green lawn in your front yard. Like putting up this facade that, look, my life is perfect. This is so awesome. Look how good I got it. I take care of my SHIT and I'm the man. And your social media is like that. It's a lot of celebrating your successes, but people don't see the
heartbreak
struggles as much, which is why the TTPG conference was great, because people shared a lot of information, as you said. But being able to get to know you really closely, like it's a lot more impressive than in that way than people would probably realize.
Well, that's
the amount of
and that's the thing. I think that's a great thing to say, because people don't know, and then that's fine. I don't know what everybody's dealing with every day of their life too, and that's right. People just see, on my Instagram, I'm sitting there petting Mickey the Aldabra, or I'm hatching a bowsprit tortoise or whatever's going on that day or whatever. But, no, I'm not posting the $333 vet bill I had last Monday to take a Herman's tortoise into the vet when she didn't even know what species it was. And she was asking me questions. Okay.
Right.
That's a struggle right there. It's like, wait a minute, you're the veterinarian. You know what I mean? I had to present to her what was really going on with this animal in order for her to be able to kind of diagnose anything, and that's a struggle we go through, because we're not dealing with dogs and cats. So finding a good vet, that's another do or don't,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the short way to say what Anthony was saying was, he's jealous of you, but he's not jealous of you. Right.
It's a job. It's a job just like anything else. And there are unbelievable, amazing aspects of it that I feel completely, utterly blessed every moment for. But then there are some things, just like the rest of you, where I just want to rip my hair out and scream,
When I send you a weather alert, or our weather guy sends you a weather alert.
There you go. Weather. Oh man.
So, there's a do. One of the things we've invested in is basically we have a weather guy we pay to provide us with specific weather alerts, so we know when we need to act to prepare for something that may throw a wrench in our plans. For the Turtle Survival Center, that can be like one of those hurricanes or something that's coming, and all of a sudden they have to, batten down the hatches and prepare everything. For us, it can be a winter storm to a tropical system to a lot of different things can happen up here in the Mid-Atlantic region where Chris and I are, and where most of us here, like all of us right here on the show right now, are all in the Mid-Atlantic region, Connecticut, PA, New Jersey. And so being able to go look 2 weeks out and go, ooh, we might have a cold snap in a week and a half that these animals can't handle. How am I going to prepare for that? Like, as opposed to, oh crap, because the models that you just see on your little app, that's just basically coming directly from the model, right? Can swing wildly. But when you have somebody who's like doing a little more analysis with that information, providing you with personalized service, like how does it really impact Galloway as opposed to,
and I think overall, with the do's and don'ts and getting started with an operation, weather's a big thing, because you have to think of specifics. Something as simple as like, oh, there's snow coming. Okay, well, my animals are batted down, everything's fine. Well, what happens if the snow weighs down the polycarbonate panels of a greenhouse? You know what I mean? That's something I can't just be like, oh, they're fine, they're in the greenhouse. Well, what if something goes wrong? So that's the kind of stuff you have to think about, and choosing the right area too. I'm very comfortable where I am. I can keep almost anything here, but I do have a building to help me out in the winter, so I don't want to leave here. There's not somewhere else that I would prefer to go, at least not in this point in my life. But weather conditions, those are do's and don'ts. If you're all the way down in Florida, South Florida, where you're pretty much going to be year all round, there's a lot of species you can breed, and there's a lot you can't. Same thing as if you live all the way up in Maine.
Yeah.
Pros and cons.
Pros and cons. So.
There was another one here from Rosie. Said, what about dealing with burnout? Tips on that.
That's a good one. That's a really good one, because when it becomes your job, it becomes work, and it is. And I'm fortunate enough where I still love these things with every ounce that I'm made of. I love these animals. Of course, I have my favorite species, but I don't give them more than I give other species that are not my favorites. Everybody gets treated like gold here, you know. But it burns you out. But you know what I find? I find the people are the ones that can actually burn you out, not the animals. Okay. The day that you decide to keep live animals, you are signing up for death. Okay. That's it. You are signing right there on that dotted line. You are accepting the fact that you are going to lose some, you know, you're going to lose some animals. That's it. That's going to happen. You can't let that part tear you down. In fact, you can't let anything tear you down. But that goes back to the first don't or do that I said was taking what everybody says with a grain of salt, because people will try to tear you down. They really will. And it hurts sometimes. It stabs.
It's all relative. Sorry.
Yeah. I've helped manage some, you know, a large collection in the past. And sometimes it feels like every other day you're going in there and finding a dead animal. And it's just like, what the heck happened? And like, it goes in waves like that. You could go months without having any issues. And all of a sudden you find like 3 animals that just decided to fall over dead in a week or two's time.
You know, but
what was that?
And then there comes the necropsies to make sure that there's nothing going around in the group, you know. But
it's just
it's all relative. People look at it and say, "Oh my gosh, look at the animals he gets to work with. I would dream to work with those animals. I would dream to have that lifestyle," but they don't realize like there are people who dream of having a diamondback terrapin one day, and you know, you work with diamondback terrapins every day. It looks so cool, but it's all relative. Like to you, all of these animals, there's risk involved, there's money tied into them, and your livelihood is tied into them. So it takes on a much different meaning, and there's a pressure involved. And then you mentioned how the people can tear you down, but also, I mean, and not to say that you're pessimistic, because I know that you're not, but you know what we talked about with the TTPG talk, man. The people are you get to a certain level that you're at where there is no milestone to achieve. If you really want Galapagos tortoises, you're going to have them. If you really want, like, there are exceptions to that rule. You could just go Pokemon and just try to get them all, but you know,
people bring plenty. Wow, again with me, bring plenty of good to this too. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, my followers, you guys, that's what keeps me going. It's not just
exactly, and that ends up being what you do it for. When I go to expos, I'm not going anymore trying to buy animals. I'm going to try to talk to the person who's interested in similar things. That experience I had with James Hall at TTPG and with so many other people, with James Krause. How cool was James Krause? Like being able to connect with these people.
James,
oh my gosh, he was awesome. Like being able to connect with these people. That's why you do it, and that's what keeps you going sometimes.
So here's going to be my thing here. Yeah, build yourself a network. Like when Chris, Anthony, or I are having a crappy turtle day, you know who we call? Each other.
Yeah.
Like we have each other on speed dial, and sometimes we just check in too. It's just like, hey, how are things going, bro? And like build yourself that network. Like that way you can kind of bounce ideas. You have somebody you trust to bounce ideas off of. Even if it's something you've already tried, they might phrase it a different way, which might give you a slightly different idea based on what you already tried. Like, there's just a million reasons why having like 1 or 2 or a handful of people you really trust.
You need your friends. You plain and simple. You need your friends, and when you find a close knit group of friends, they become family. They're not going to turn your back on you, which is what you're going to need. Because the people that don't know you, the people that are just there to try to stir the pot, they're going to try to bring you down. But that's in anything. You could be a musician. You could be an actor. Somebody's going to tell you suck. That's just the name of the game. You know what we should do? We should do, you know, they do like the celebrity tweets where they read the mean tweets.
Yeah, mean tweets is terrific.
We should do that on here because I got a bunch that I.
Oh yeah.
We should.
You have mean tweets.
That would be a fun episode, actually.
Yeah. Turtle
mean
turtle tweets.
Yeah,
do that. But listen, just to end that, because I know we're running out of time here. Number 1, don't let people tear you down. Number 2, make sure you have the right people by your side. And number 3, which I think is the most important, never stop loving that animal or those animals. That's what it has to be. The minute that you stop loving them and you start looking at them as nothing more than a project, that's it. You're burnt out. It's over. And that's something that has not happened to me, and I hope never will. And I don't see it happening because this is my life, and I honestly wouldn't have it any other way.
Such a liar.
What?
I'm just kidding. That was really beautiful. I really mean it. You know, that's beautiful, man. If you want to know what TTPG was like, that's it. Me making fun of Chris at his his drop the mic moments, just like making fun of him. Yeah, I was ruthless with you, but we had such a good time, and you're such a good sport too. You really are. We just had fun, and you made fun of me too.
Oh, I got you good a couple times.
Yeah, for being big and ugly.
We have to have a conference that all three of us are able to be at.
Yeah, I know. It's funny because the TTPG is so rough for you, Steve, because it's during your anniversary, right? And
it's in the middle of the school year.
Yeah,
right. Personal days as a teacher, right?
Right. And TSA is so tough for me schedule-wise, and I try to talk to wifey about it, but it's just difficult. So Chris is the only one of us that's been to both. So,
yeah.
We already knew.
You're at one. You have one each, right, Chris?
Yes, sir.
And Anthony, you've got what, 2 or 3 TTPGs now?
2.
All right.
And you've been at every TSA since 2002?
No. 15. So 15, 16, 17. So I've got 4 TSAs in a row now, and
that's awesome.
I can't see myself ever missing another TSA. It's like it's already on the calendar, even though we don't know exact dates. I know enough of a time frame that
that's awesome. And we appreciate that a lot too, because it's important, to get out there and network and everything. And we do it on behalf of each other at these.
Yeah.
Real quick, since we're talking about just being involved and having an operation or having a life with turtles and tortoises, that's a great one right there. You got to be active. You got to be out there. You can't just sit behind a computer, sell your animals, or at least that's not how I feel. I'm not trying to tell anybody how they should be doing things, but part of the fun of it is being active. We all get anxiety before we go to these things and stuff, and we always have worries and everything. But those, I going out to TTPG, and when I went to TSA, you feel like $1 million after you leave. It's just great. So it's a wonderful experience, and it's the kind of stuff that makes you come home and say, "Oh, I'm ready to get back to things, and ready to see my animals, and I'm ready to just try to do the next big thing."
Kind of gives you that high.
Yeah, exactly.
That puts you in line to make it for the next couple months.
Yeah. Or to the next year, to the next conference.
Yeah, whatever it happens to be. Exactly. Lots of cool stuff can get started there. I know we've gotten conservation projects started with a collaboration that began at a conference. You might start a breeding collaboration because of a talk, conversation, a conference, whatever. So lots of great stuff there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, any last words, Anthony, Chris?
I would like to say one last thing, just piggybacking on that. A lot of people, especially some people who have been involved in this stuff for a long time, decades even, tend to stay quiet. They like to stay below, the radar, sell animals off the classifieds, or sell through friends. They don't want to be out there. And I understand that. I hate selling animals too. But a lot of times they end up taking on more and more projects, getting busier, getting burnt out, and not sharing information the way we saw at TTPG. And it's such an important opportunity that we each have to educate the next generation, to educate each other. There are things, Chris hatched an angulated tortoise because he shaved the eggshell with sandpaper, or sanded the eggshell with sandpaper. What? That's incredible. And he actually got that idea from someone else. Right, and now is sharing that idea, and that was an idea that we shared at the TTPG.
I was admitting my faults. I was pleading with people. I was like, "Somebody help me here! I can't hatch one of these things." But of course, the second one goes and hatches on its own.
Right, but that first one, that breakthrough, literally and figuratively, happened because of information that was shared by someone else from the private sector, and you were able. Right, it was someone from the private sector, right? I'm not making that up. Not from Mizzou. Yeah, and then you were able to share that information with others now, and it makes the world a better place for those animals. They're going to keep getting imported, so maybe if we can start to get some captive bred ones going here, then we don't need them to to have a situation like the Russian tortoise. It's not that they won't.
That's the big picture there.
Share the
information. One of the things I think that's funny about that is one of the things we talked about is we're trying to figure out how to hatch these angulators. We're like, we need to find a way to weaken the eggshell, and we never thought to use sandpaper.
Right.
Who
would? I don't know.
We got to weaken the eggshell. Maybe it's like and then somebody says sandpaper, and we're like, it's just like, oh,
that sounds really dumb, but try. Here you go. It's amazing though. And that's the sort of victory that you can have when you take a role, that's more educational as opposed to just, I'm doing this for me to entertain myself and maybe I'll tell my friends, but I don't want them to tell everyone because I don't want people to know I have this species or whatever. And I understand that, but we're working with turtles and tortoises, and they're one of, if not the most endangered vertebrate group on the planet. And we owe it to them to be able to, put our money where our mouth is and help make the world a better place for them so they can stop being taken from the wild more than they need to be, and so that they can be here when the world changes and we can bring, send them back to their native habitats.
And I think, it's important to know, important to say that, and I've said this before, especially to you guys, and it goes along with admitting your faults. There is no such thing as an expert in this field. No such thing. The animals are the experts. We learn from them. But the only way we're going to learn is if we compare our experiences, share what we can, and admit our faults.
Beautiful.
Awesome. All right. I think that's a great place to end. Ladies and gentlemen, we're glad to have you with us. Keep learning, keep growing, keep loving.
Keep shining. Know that you can always count on me.
All right. For Anthony Pierre Leone.
For sure.
Chris Leone. I'm Steve Enders.
That's what friends
we'll
are for.
Catch you on the first Monday in January 7th, episode 50. Episode 50.
Whoa!
We're going to do it's all about what you want to hear. Give us your questions. We'll give you our answers. We're going to put up a form. We're going to advertise this. Send your questions in through that form once we get it on. That way we just have this sheet where we can just go through and answer whatever is on your mind. All right? Yep. So that's big number 50 coming on January 7th. All right?
Mark your calendars.
Yeah, mark your calendars. January 7th. It's all about the listeners' questions. And maybe you even have some Pondcast memories you want to bring up. All right? So have a great night. We'll catch you on the other side.